Over 1,000 years ago, before the birth of Christ, a young pharaoh died. His burial was carried out in a hurry, and his name would shortly be erased from the monuments he had built. All memory of his reign would soon be lost. He was vanished from history for 3,000 years. His name was Tutankhamun. Hello, my name is Howard Carter. I made it my mission to find him. The story of the boy king Tutankhamun would eventually become inextricably linked to my life as a simple Englishman. I first came to Egypt as an artist, hired to sketch and draw and paint the ancient monuments. I quickly became a knowledgeable archaeologist as well. A freak storm in the winter of 1989 brought me to the temples of Western Thebes near Luxor to assess the damage and record wall reliefs. But it was my journey home one morning that was to change my life. I was riding home. I had taken this path many times before, and my horse all of a sudden stumbled, and there was a step that became exposed. I knew my finding was important, but without funding, I couldn't do anything. So I sketched my findings, I tried to sell my idea, and luckily Theodore Davis, an ex-Boston lawyer with the only permit to dig in the Valley of the Kings, granted us permission, and we started digging. By 1901, the tomb I had discovered was ready to be opened. We had excavated it for 11 years. Biggest downfall in my entire career. It was empty, completely empty. I made the biggest fool out of myself, and I made the biggest fool out of Theodore Davis. 4 years later, in 1905, a British lord by the name of Lord Carnarvon arrived in Luxor to rest after a serious road accident. Davis created a new team to dig in the Valley of the Kings that year, and he didn't ask me to be a part of it because of the mockery I had made of him. To find a new tomb in the Valley of the Kings that was untouched was classified as the Holy Grail. Almost impossible. 26 pharaohs, over half had been found, many destroyed, majority of them had been robbed. There were 3 left. British Lord Carnarvon had shown a great deal of interest in digging, and he had taken hold of the opportunity. He'd assigned me as manager and director of the dig. In 1908, in Western Thebes, we began to dig. Luckily, I knew basic Egyptian, so I could tell the Egyptian workers to be careful, and I taught them how to use the tools properly and not damage the artifacts. Unfortunately, we needed the permit to dig in the Valley of the Kings, and Davis was the only one with that permit. We only found little artifacts outside the Valley of the Kings. In 1908, it was discovered that 1 tomb was left. We dug for years, but never found anything important. World War I broke out, and Lord Carnarvon and his family went back to England and left the dig. I thought I was finished. I went back to art. Davis had discovered a tomb. They thought it was Tutankhamun's tomb, but I knew it couldn't be. Something inside me knew that he hadn't been found. Theodore Davis was a treasure man. He didn't really care about the ornaments. He only cared about what they contained inside. If it was important, precious, worth money. He usually damaged pots and important ornaments. He didn't understand that something like bandage or linen inside a pot had such significance important to Egyptian history that it could potentially lead to the mummification of a pharaoh. The DNA, connected, but no, all he cared about was destroying artifacts. 1919, I got the permit to dig in the Valley of the Kings. So happy! Lord Carnarvon continued to fund me. I drew up a grid. I started using a grid reference. I divided the Valley of the Kings into 60 sections, and we were about to dig them all. Months went on, and nothing was found. No sight of any tomb. 40 of the grids had been crossed off as duds. Lord Carnarvon's wife made him stop the project. I was devastated. We were so close. I'm not a rich man. I couldn't do it myself. All hope was lost. Until one night. Leonard Woolley, a man who used to work for Theodore Davis, received a call from the American Museum informing him that previous jars that had been sent over from the valley contained embalming materials as part of the funerary feast of Tutankhamun, which meant his tomb must be in the valley. I was so overwhelmed and excited. We were so close. I travelled to England to tell Lord Carnarvon and bargain a deal. I told him we would go halves, but he insisted. He said he would pay. I was over the moon. Already felt victorious. We worked through the remaining grids until there was only one left. Through weapon dating, we discovered that the tomb had been untouched, which excited us even more. One of the young workers discovered the entryway to the tomb. We then excavated the entrance and sent word. On the 26th of November in 1922, the tomb was ready to be opened. Luxor, his daughter Evelyn, and I stood at the entrance. We went down the beginning of the tomb, stood at the entrance, ready to knock down the first wall. I started hammering a small hole into the wall. I lit a candle and pushed it through just so I could see through into the room. Amazing. The room was filled with amazing, glorious, gorgeous gold ornaments. The wall was bashed down and we entered. The Holy Grail was found, but there was no sight of a pharaoh's tomb. There was another wall. I made a large hole, big enough for us to fit through but small enough to reseal. It was bombarded with beautiful hieroglyphics on the wall. On the right wall, an enormous door. Beyond the door, a sealed tomb, untouched. I found him.